I'm live. All right. I love this live shows. Hello, Jason here from, oh, let's see if I can get that right. There you go, septictank.co.uk. So if you want me to help you, if you want free advice, then just go to septictank.co.uk. Okay, so what am I going to discuss today? Well, people are asking me, they're saying, Jason, how many types of septic tanks are there? Well, I'm just going to keep it really simple, right? There's two types of septic tanks. There is non-domestic, okay, and as you've guessed it, there's domestic. All right, so there's non-domestic septic tanks and there's domestic septic tanks, right? So let me start with domestic septic tanks first. Okay. So let me tell you what the rules and regulations are regarding domestic septic tanks. So basically, if you've got a house that you live in 24/7 and it's a place that you call home, this is what's classed as a domestic dwelling, right? A domestic situation. So for this type of property, you would need a domestic septic tank. All right, and there's certain rules and regulations governing domestic septic tanks. For example, it's got to have a CE mark. It's got to have an EN 125. You know what? It's really hard. It's really hard to speak and to spell. Well, for me anyway, right? You've got to have an EN 12566-1 certificate, right? And it got to conform to building regs, which is fine. I mean, all those things kind of make sense, don't they? So a domestic septic tank basically has a lot of rules and regulations governing it. For example, oh man, where did we start? Okay, let's give you some basic ones. So, for example, it's got to be sized according to the number of bedrooms or people, right, in the dwelling, okay? And so the government has strict guidelines as to the sizing of a septic tank, okay? So that's a domestic septic tank. You have to comply with all those rules and regulations. All the septic tanks that we sell at septictank.co.uk do conform to all those rules and regulations, okay? I don't sell any domestic septic tanks that don't conform to those situations, you know. I don't sell any septic tanks that do not conform. They're all legal and approved by the Environmental Agency and the UK government. I got there in the end. It's been a long day today. All right, so let's talk about now non-domestic septic tanks. Okay, so non-domestic septic tanks. So what is the difference between the two? Well, the non-domestic septic tank doesn't have the same red tape or the same kind of regulations connected to it. So you could use anything for a non-domestic septic tank within reason, but could use a bucket or something like that, you know, but within reason, right? One of the most popular non-domestic septic tanks on the market today is called the Cube septic tank. That's a non-domestic septic tank, right? It's called the Cube. And it's a very posh tank. And it's surrounded by a steel cage. And it's ideal for glamping, for tents, caravans. Mainly people use it for mobile homes and for outhouses, such as stables, things like that. And because it's a non-domestic septic tank, it doesn't need a CE mark. It doesn't need, an EN 12566-1 certification. There's no real rules and regulations regarding it. And so that gives you a lot of leeway. So when you're installing it, but beware, because some people that do sell non-domestic septic tanks out there, they're these cheap things from China and Japan and stuff like that. So the Cube is made in England, and yeah, it's one of the best non-domestic septic tanks I know of. It's one of our best sellers. We've been selling them for years. It's a tried and tested product. But the point is, I'm just telling you, I mean, look, there's a few non-domestic septic tanks out there, but if you're looking for something small, looking for something cheap, then the Cube does it all. I think it's about $299 off the top of my head, $299, and I think it's 59 quid delivery. But the point is, if you're looking for a small non-domestic tank for glamping, for tents, for caravans, for mobile homes, for stables, then that really is a contender. So that's basically the difference between a domestic and non-domestic septic tank. And they're all what I call low profile. I mean, mostly whether they are domestic or non-domestic, I would only personally go for the ones that are low profile. That means basically that they're shallow, right? They're shallow tanks. They're easy to install. Typically with a low profile, shallow, like bullet septic tank. I mean, if you're asking me which ones on the domestic side would I go for, I'd go for something like the bullet septic tank. The bullet septic tank, it's a very shallow tank, takes about an hour to install. It's fully approved by the UK government. It kind of looks something like that. But its rib design means it's really strong and it doesn't need concreting to put in. So if I was going to go for a domestic septic tank, I'd go for one called the Bullet. For a non-domestic septic tank, I'd go for one called the Cube. And there you go. So that's the basic difference between the two tanks. So one, the domestic tank has to conform to building regs, a non-domestic one doesn't. So that's it in a nutshell. So I hope that's helped. Thank you very much for watching my live show. And I'm just trying to work this out, okay, because left is right and right is left. So septictank.co.uk is my business. Been doing it for 20 years. I love installing tanks. I love helping people. And if you want free advice, if you want free help for me to fix or solve any septic tank problems or issues you've got, then please visit septictank.co.uk. Listen, thank you very much for watching. Speak to you soon.